Hi, this is Pat with Codecademy. I'm a web developer based in Washington, D.C. A project manager can seem like a pretty straightforward role, but if you were like me, you probably didn't know exactly what it was. If you're not entirely sure what they do or just want a little bit more clarity, you've come to the right place. Because in this video, we'll discuss what a project manager is, what is their day-to-day like, what are their concerns, what keeps them up at night, how do they measure success, and most importantly, the difference between a product manager and a project manager. I hope you're ready for us to clear this up once and for all. Let's get started. All right, let's get to it. In this video, we're going to cover three main sections. The first is going to be a project manager's day-to-day, and that's going to be how they translate the priorities into day-to-day tasks, which of course means managing deadlines. But it also means managing up, because what happens on the lower level needs to be pushed up to the higher level for further context. So in that, we'll also talk about breaking down tasks, and that's from the start to finish or from epic to story in agile development terms. Next, it's managing resources, which means both time and development resources or design resources, but it also means listening to the team. Lastly, there's momentum, and that means both blocking and unblocking, but it also means elevating problems when things don't go as planned. Who's ready to get started with me? So before we get too far ahead of ourselves, a project manager is the person in charge of the team's day-to-day. Whereas a product manager is more high level, a project manager is down in the weeds with the workers that translate the goals into action items and make sure that everything actually gets accomplished. If you're curious what a product manager is, especially in contradistinction to a project manager, I'll link a video below that goes deeper into what a product manager has on their plate. Suffice it to say, although product managers and project managers have confusing titles and a lot of overlapping focus, there are subtle changes that make a big difference as to what their day-to-day look like. But for us, we're talking about project managers in this video. So the first thing that is on their plate is going to be the priority translation. In a lot of companies, project managers work in agile development cycles where they typically have a week or 2 weeks or maybe even a month to plot out what can be realistically accomplished. Project managers take the vague, high-level directives from product managers and translate them into step-by-step instructions for designers or engineers to work on. It's important for a project manager to understand where a priority comes from to turn it into the proper steps. Sometimes the spirit of the task might involve more steps than usual, or sometimes the priority might be more vague and need clarification. For example, we could say we need to make our customers happier. A project manager needs to understand what's making customers unhappy so they can come up with a plan to make them happier and translate that plan into actionable steps. Next, managing deadlines. So a project manager is in charge of breaking down the tasks so they don't seem insurmountable for the teams working on the feature or application. In a sense, this means a typical day is distinguishing between the urgent and the important. This is big because in the real world, teams won't have infinite amounts of time to get it right or get things done, but project managers have to do their best with what they have. This might mean breaking down a task into iterations to achieve progress given limited resources. Deadlines are often subjective to what's happening relative to the rest of the company, and whether that's an announcement coming up for marketing, a trade show where a company will demo their new capability, or securing another round of funding if it's a startup. Every company has a different set of priorities, and those priorities means they have to be accomplished by a certain set of time. So to accomplish this means prioritizing the sequence of tasks and making sure the most important parts are built first before jumping into the urgent. Urgent is tricky because it may mean it's a priority for some, but not all, whereas important means everyone needs it done, not just a select few. So a project manager's job is to separate what will really matter at the end of the day, knowing it can't all be done at the same time. Sometimes this means managing up. A project manager has to work with their managers above them to set the expectations. Maybe a feature is taking longer to build after engineers discover problems in the build-out phase, or maybe a feature is unexpectedly complex and it needs to be addressed before subsequent work is done. A product manager's focus needs to stay high level, so they're counting on their project managers to tell them if they're on course or if something's come up that needs to be taken into account. The goal here is to not be blindsided. Companies need to have the right people in place to flag when there are problems so that they can anticipate any challenges and budget for them. And it's the project manager's job to push up the chain of command both good and complicating things to keep in mind when the courses are being set and promises are being made. The next theme for project managers is going to be breaking down tasks. Breaking down tasks is the name of the game for a project manager. In an agile development environment, there are terms called epics and stories. Epics are much higher level tasks that can be sometimes a little bit more vague in what they need to accomplish. And a story is a subset of that epic that is more specific as to what needs to happen. Let's revisit that example from before, where we make our customers happier. A project manager needs to understand what's making customers unhappy so they can come up with a plan to make them happier and translate that plan as actionable steps. Now, this can involve determining where the users are getting frustrated, deciding if a new feature needs to be built or how an existing feature can be tweaked, and then delegating the build out to the right team members. The project manager will make story tickets that enumerate what needs to happen to address that priority. Next, project managers have to manage their resources. Each team has a finite amount of designers and developers to accomplish any given task. Some developers and designers may be tied up in a previous task, or maybe they specialize in an area that no one else can do. So a project manager assigns tasks to the team members based on their availability and capability given the realities of these teams and where they're at. And this might mean reassigning team members to start on different stories, or it could mean keeping them on the same thing so they have the required amount of time to complete it. Which is important for the next step because a project manager also needs to listen to their team. A project manager can't manage expectations for the team if they don't know what's going on, so they need to stay in close contact with their engineers and designers to know what's blocking them, what resources they need, and maybe who they're waiting on before they can proceed. In our Agile development model, a project manager and the team accomplish this through daily stand-ups, sometimes called scrums, where team members list out their progress and any blocks they need removed. Sometimes, though, for project managers, this might also mean talking to individuals directly, taking them to coffee, or hearing them out in a different capacity. Project managers are there to move things along, so they have to be the feet on the street knowing what's going on with the team. They are the very best source of information about how much progress can actually be accomplished. Lastly, a project manager focuses on momentum. Momentum means blocking or unblocking, where a project manager will free up or secure resources, or by flagging other team members that they cannot progress until a previous stage is complete. Let's talk about unblocking. Maybe a developer or designer is waiting on approval for their work from someone else, and they've just been too busy to get to it. Unblocking could also mean securing software licenses, trainings, or teachings. It could also mean requesting a more senior team member to sit with someone to work through a problem that they're struggling with. Unblocking is less a function of capability, just that a task could be accomplished faster if there are more experienced people looking at the problem together. This is because there are still those deadlines, and a project manager could have full faith that a team member is capable of solving that problem, but they might just need to get it faster with a little bit of help. The spirit of unblocking is to remove anything that's stopping a team member from accomplishing their job in a given amount of time. Conversely, a project manager may have to halt a product or process to make sure that a subsequent or parallel task can be completed. In this context, maybe the order of the operations was not forecast in the right order. Maybe a challenge has come up for a designer or developer that needs to have someone else on a different team address it before they can finish their part of the task. Maybe a story is complete, but it hasn't been tested yet, so we can't release it with confidence knowing that it will work as intended. A project manager's day-to-day is balance and making sure that the sequence of getting stuff done happens in the right order. If there are problems or major delays, a project manager needs to keep the relevant stakeholders included in the discussion. This could be where a project manager or parallel departments like marketing, finance, or customer support are kept in the loop and informed. Higher level departments like product managers, chief marketing officers, chief technologists are all counting on project managers to keep them informed of how the progress is going. Everybody wants to advance the progress that they are ultimately responsible for, so it's important for them to be kept in the loop if there's something they can do to help out. This can mean stepping in to outside vendors for services. It could mean approving purchases like hardware or software. But it could also mean that a higher level discussion needs to be made in order for the project manager to set the right priorities given what needs to happen first. Project managers are the glue that help keep the company together and moving as one, with the understanding that the team's challenges as well as the higher level priorities are all tied together. This is Pat with Codecademy. I hope I cleared up what a project manager is, but did I answer all your questions? You can like and subscribe to this channel or leave your questions below because I love responding to learners' questions. Check out the video description for more helpful links to project management. But if you're ready to take your career to the next step, come on over to Codecademy. We'll help you get started.